stream.
Okay, is everybody here?
Are we missing anybody?
Looks like everyone's here. Are we ready to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:01? Your agendas were handed out. We just need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Is that Linda and Karen?
Yes.
My sound is on. I'm going to try to fix that.
I didn't catch that. Do we need to hold up for a minute?
I think Karen might be having some issues with sound again.
I'm not having issues.
Oh, no, I thought it was you that said that.
It was Lisa.
Oh, okay.
I wonder if she went to go help Mike. 'Cause it sounds like
Okay.
he's connecting to, it looks like he's connecting to audio right now. So maybe give them a minute to get him online.
And my Zoom has been acting up on me recently, so if I buzz out, I'll just call in. But don't stop progress. Joshua, you can help me out. We'll just give Mike a couple minutes here and then we'll move on.
Okay.
He's on, folks.
Okay, well, let's just move into, I'm assuming the adoption of the agenda is approved by acclamation. To wrap that up, we'll move into our COVID-19 update. Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a rather interesting couple weeks. At this point, I'm going to let Norm give the update on that. We've had quite a few meetings and conversations with a lot of people, but I'll let Norm go ahead and give you the update on that.
Good evening. We're going to start off with a situation update, some basic numbers, incident objectives, and kind of where the state of the response is from the Unified Command perspective, and then of course our own objectives as well. For Whatcom County, number of confirmed cases as of 6 p.m. tonight is 280 with 27 deaths. Washington State, as of 6 p.m. tonight, is 12,753 confirmed cases, 711 deaths. The information is obtained from the Johns Hopkins GIS tracking. So that is an active online service that's out there. Unified Command objectives are fairly unchanged from the previous briefing that you got a couple of weeks ago. They still are trying, their major objectives are to prevent and mitigate the spread of the virus and establish an isolation facility to meet countywide demand, which they did yesterday at the Byron Street location. It is opened, and a fortunate thing is they have no patients, which is a good sign. Provide for the most vulnerable members of the community, ensure adequacy of first responders and personnel resources, provide resources and supplies to healthcare facilities and first responders as requested, maintain essential services, which part of that is a plan and establish surge capacity and capability, monitor and mitigate economic impacts to the community. Currently, there are objectives that are extremely important they're working on is assessing the agriculture and aquaculture, fisheries and farming impacts that have occurred due to the virus and the subsequent stay home and stay safe orders. They're also working on monitoring and assessing the impacts to the border. The border has had another 30-day shutdown except for essential traffic for both the Canadian government and US side. So they're continuing to monitor that, which is showing a significant impact to the local region. And they're also monitoring and assessing impacts on the local governments, ensuring that they're in compliance with the FEMA guidelines set forth, and as well as reporting to the state as necessary. Keep the public and stakeholders and media informed as to response activities. Again, they're doing most of that through PSA spots and through www.watkincovid.com as the main information source that is updated frequently, and manage a coordinated interagency response efforts that reflects the makeup of Unified Command. They are currently on operational period number 8, which will be a 4-day period and will be the last of their 4-day operational periods. Starting April 27th, they'll be going to a 7-day operational period and moving to a little different model in their command structure. Sudden Valley objectives haven't differed too much as well. I'll just hit the high points on that. Provide updates to Unified Command on Sudden Valley's operational status, planning for surge operations as indicated by Unified Command, conduct essential business and maintenance operation in alignment with the governor's guidance on social distancing and essential operations as per the stay home, stay safe policy, share important messages with the membership on key messages from the governor's office, Unified Command, and information on local Sudden Valley resources as well. Monitor the economic impact of Sudden Valley and provide updated information, Unified Command, and also through our stakeholders here, which are all of you. Maintain contact with partner agencies on the operational readiness of Sudden Valley. Plan for business reentry. This is when directed by the Washington Governor's Office and or Unified Command. That'll be a return to normal operation in a dialed up or a phased in manner as directed. Plan with community partners, process to ease burdens on the community for essential items such as planning for food needs, similar to food banks, and opportunities for the community to have options to ease the mental stress that's being accumulated from being sequestered at home due to the stay home and stay safe policy. So if you will, I'm going to try to share my screen here, John. We'll see if that works, but this is kind of an updated chart on where things are currently at from the Unified Command perspective. I don't know if anybody can see this.
Yes.
You can? Okay. So let me go to a full screen. What you see before you is the current situation status briefing for confirmed cases, the trend line of the confirmed cases and or deaths. What is important on this chart is, if you will notice that the trend line is here, and this is where the confirmed cases are. You will notice the famous flattening of the curve. You will see it starting to flatten here. This is what's being monitored rigorously by both Unified Command and Public Health. And down here, you'll be the updated confirmed cases and other counts as well. This is showing you that where things are as far as call volumes to EMS and fire. And they've reached their historic or numbers recently, as in returning to what the counts were averaged at for last year. And in some cases, they're showing more of an increase. This bottom section shows you what Unified Command's tracking from fire and EMS. As you can see, their calls are starting to increase or maintain their normal average, but down here is where they're looking at COVID-related incidences, as in somebody calls the 911 and reports that they're having respiratory distress, and that information is related to EMS so that they can respond accordingly. Okay, I'm going to unshare the screen right now. Okay. So that kind of goes over the situation that Unified Command has been putting out. Again, this material is available on the Watkin COVID site for the public to peruse at their leisure. Current operational status for Sudden Valley under our stay home, stay safe policy from the governor. Social distancing is unchanged. Our essential staffing level is unchanged, and essential business operations are currently unchanged. Sudden Valley has participated, as Joe has stated, in a number of daily, weekly, and sometimes bi-weekly webinars or conference calls with Unified Command as well as Public Health. The most recently was concerning a teleconference with the associated mayors and heads of the Chamber of Commerce that was sponsored by Public Health and had to do with the cancellation or recommendations by Public Health to cancel events. That has led to Sudden Valley has taken that to heart, and as you know, the 4th of July event and the Bye to Sudden Valley are no longer on the books. Weekly items that we attend quite on that are, again, the conference calls with small cities and also unincorporated areas. This is facilitated by Unified Command, and it's a discussion of the issues that are in that operational period that are impacting those municipalities and the urban areas. Most recently, that was held last Friday, and the main discussion was on events and event cancellations and an update by Public Health. We also have a daily briefing as a command and general staff that's still ongoing and has continued since the virus was declared a pandemic and Unified Command was stood up. And we also have the examples of our meetings we're involved in quite regularly with governance, such as this meeting, various committees, EPC and finance are two examples. And the committee chairs are the ones that notify us that they have the meeting scheduled and ready to be set up. And then that's facilitated through our organization that we have set up here. Planning and measurements. We also meet regularly on a conference call with our Sudden Valley faith-based organization, and that call was consisting of assessing what that organization is hearing or getting reports of around the association. Being it's the largest group that meets, when they were meeting weekly, it is a good yardstick to determine what they're seeing. And of course, we have our own staff meetings and managers meetings, and our department heads are actually meeting quite regularly via the Zoom portal with their staffs. Going forward, based on a lot of this information, we've had to make some planning assumptions, and those planning assumptions are pretty much in alignment with the information that we've gotten from Unified Command, state situation reports, et cetera. As we are aware, the governor has stated that on May 4th, there is the supposedly sunsetting of the current stay home and stay safe policy. However, Department of Health and the governor's offices indicated, as well as Unified Command, that date may in fact be extended. How long that extension will be is up to the governor himself, and that will be a determination that he will probably be discussing shortly with all of us through his press conference avenues. Ongoing planning, as we stated, we're planning on business reentry. It is generally a good idea for the plan for this to, at some point, start being dialed back. And so we can look at how to phase, this will be a phased in approach when that occurs. And we're planning for that phased in approach with our departments. The departments have a tool that was developed by us here locally on what was curtailed, canceled, or limited to be in compliance with stay home, stay safe. And we want to make sure those processes are not skipped. And when we can start bringing them back per the governor's orders, we intend to have a process to do that. We also, another planning assumption, and a large one, is on construction. Currently, as we all know, most of the commercial construction, as well as all of the private constructions, are currently shut down for stay home, stay safe. There are some indications from one of the stakeholders that I talk to regularly, who's actually a former colleague of mine who works for one of our major ports, that commercial construction may start within a week to 10 days, but there will be certain criteria that have to be met from the governor's office. With that said, that's major capital projects for a major stakeholder. The private construction aspect, there's been no guidance from the governor's office as to when that will be considered, what the criteria may be, et cetera. He said as of Tuesday that there would be further guidance from his office coming on these details, as well as recreation as well. So we're in a wait and see mode and planning that we can start the process to reopen when Olympia lets us know that what we can and can't do. In particular, recreation is one of those areas that we're trying to reach out to the governor's office. I've sent several communications to one of his aides just to try and get the criteria of what they would be looking for to allow an easing of stay home, stay safe, but they're not talking. So we're all in waiting to see what that is going to entail when they start to release that. All this is going to lead for our business reentry into a written plan developed locally. We're doing this for two reasons, again, so we don't miss anything and we can come back and have our services and amenities and the other actions restored in a phased in approach, because this will not be like turning a light switch on. Public health has said this time and time again. This will be more like turning a dial. Slowly monitor, a little more monitor. Nobody feels it would be in the best interest of anybody that they had to go to the same type of criteria that we're currently under a second time. So they're being very, very cautious about this. The other part of this is the written plan and deliverables. Is when we start this, there'll be extensive external messaging coming out to let the membership know what we're being told can be allowed and what the rules will be to govern that from the state. So that use all of our methods that we can to inform the membership and governance on what that process will look like. This written plan will also give us historical documentation so that if we had to ever repeat something similar, we at least got reference material to go by and not breaking new ground again. Other items that we're continuing as part of our meeting to stay home, stay safe as it currently exists is external messaging to the membership. The e-blast captures most of that. However, if there is an actionable item that were to occur that we need to get out immediately, we have methods and do use them when we have to. And again, unified command has requested and continues to push people toward their website, www.whatcomcovid.com. Again, they do update it regularly. You'll see several PSA spots on that, as well as information such how to access food from the food banks. And if you're a person at risk, what's open, what's not, those kind of things. That's the briefing as of today. Are there any questions?
Norm, I've got a question. Do you know, there was on a website, evidently the University of Washington saying something like 25 more days. And I'm wondering, what does the governor use or Unified Command use as their source? Is it CDC or the State Health Department?
They have several sources that the state health and at the state level and the governor's office monitor. UW feeds into that, but they also use, and this is a term that probably Steffi's familiar with, the Rhino system, where they are monitoring public health, and that's treatments and beds available. They're also monitoring CDC and are also doing extensive computer modeling, which are the charts that you saw earlier that have been developed both down in Camp Murray as well as here, Western Washington for us. So a lot of the data that you see in the situation reports from Whatcom County's Unified Command are put together by the modeling that's been assembled and put together here by in cooperation with the Western Washington University. So it's a broad spectrum of information.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Norm.
Go, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
I didn't notice it on the graphs that you showed, but do you know offhand how many people have been tested in Whatcom?
I don't have that on this particular graph. It is on the situation report that's posted on the Whatcom COVID site. If you go to get updates, you open that up and it's in the first 2 or 3 pages. We'll tell you how many people have been tested, how many the negative results are, et cetera. So it is posted there. I just did not put that forth to this briefing.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
Norm, do you know, has there been any positive tests for COVID within the Sun Valley community?
No, I do not. That is governed under the various privacy laws. With that, EMS, for example, if they have if fire rolls a aid car to a respiratory distress, they'll have an indication of the symptoms are there. But as far as a patient and those kind of things, that's just not information that we have at this level. That's contained by public health and needs to be staying with public health, frankly.
Thanks.
Hey, Josh, I have an answer to your question. Confirmed cases 282, negative results 1519, so somewhere close to 1,800 tests it looks like they've given out. Sometimes the negative results are a little bit delayed, like they'll get them in a batch. So
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So that's like I said, the information is available. I just did not present it on this.
Yeah, I just Googled it. I Google it every day because I like to keep track.
That's what it is. The other part of this is if you haven't gone to the governor's website, he has released a document called Safe Return to Public Life in Washington. And it outlines the high level objectives on what that office says will be the standard for starting to ease things. So I would recommend you read that if you have. Well, no further questions. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Norm. Like always, a great presentation. Appreciate it. Joe, anything else on the COVID-19 status update?
No, I don't have anything else on the COVID-19, other than that I'm hoping this gets over quick.
Me too. Go ahead, Steffi, do you have a question?
Yeah, I
Or
have some
comment?
questions. On the COVID-19, I guess, I was wondering if we as an administration are doing anything in order to relieve our financial burden. Are we applying for the SBA loans? Are we looking into grants and things like that? Because it certainly looks like we are keeping people employed, so we would qualify for some of those loans that have forgiveness on payroll.
We are currently working on all those right now. We do have some applications in, and we're working on the big PPP one right now. So we are actively pursuing that.
Okay, because I know that one was temporarily shut down, but there are also some state things too. So I was just kind of curious thank you for that.
Yeah, we've been working on trying to get as much of that government aid, free aid as we can. So.
Okay, we'll move into first off, do any board members have announcements they'd like to make?
Hi, I've got an announcement. You all know, and there's been a posting on the Sudden Valley website. Our first 30-day time limit for board candidates expired with no one applying. I've had a couple of inquiries from people. But until they turn in an application, I don't know. So we're set now to go and have the application period open until May 11 with candidate interviews and appointments the 28th of the month. I waited and tried to go a little bit longer. Maybe we'll get lucky and be able to meet again. I don't know. And John and I are working on what do we do if we have to still meet online and do voting and everything.
Linda, is there anything you need from us to help with this process, or just help
Not
share
really.
the announcement?
Well, I'm going to go out on the Facebook pages that I have access to here soon and just make a copy of what's on the Sudden Valley website. I've sent an article to Brent already to go in the May views. And so there's not any more that you can do than that. I just think so many people have other things on their mind right now that, applying for the board appointment probably is not real high on their list of things to worry about.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I do know that a lot of HOAs aren't necessarily meeting right now either. So we could be taking that into consideration too.
I think as big as we are, though, you have to, they have to be having some of the same issues that we're having with dues forgiveness and people out of work. Alcoa just announced today they're closing. That's big.
That's huge. You're right.
Actually, CAI recommended not waiving dues. They said that was a bad practice. So for whatever that's worth, I find that to be very odd. I think it is a great thing that the board did for the community in these times of need. So I don't know why their stance was on that, but I think kudos to the board for allowing April dues to be waived. So.
What's their stance on pandemics, though?
Again, they don't have one. This is new for them. But again, I mean, at some point in time, Josh, the human factor has to take over.
Right.
And for all humanity, you would hope that the other boards of homeowners associations or condos or co-ops would have some type of a heart and say, hey, everybody's hurting. Let's see what we can do to help people out. But I don't know. It's a shame.
There's an addendum to the governor's stay home order that specifically deals with homeowners associations. It doesn't say anything about dues, but it talks about late charges and fees and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that came out the other day. I think it came out last week.
I think like the 17th, 19th of April, something like that.
Yeah, it was a little bit late. Yeah, and we had already decided to waive dues and late fees. So we're ahead of the curve from the governor's office on that standpoint.
Yeah, way ahead on the late fees and stuff.
Yeah. So kudos to you guys. I mean, that's a good thing for the community. So
Okay, I have an announcement. Just to our strategic planning, I would like to postpone our strategic planning session. I know we had talked about having that in May. I don't think I need a motion or anything on that, but just an announcement that it'll be postponed. And I think I'd like to get an email chain started, or we can add it as a discussion item for a future board meeting, just to kind of get everyone's thoughts on how we want to structure an agenda for strategic planning. I have some thoughts and ideas, so you tell me what's the best way. Do I just shoot that out to you all and then we can just have a back and forth, or do we want to set a time for some discussion at a future meeting?
I'd suggest probably a future meeting, because it'd be difficult to have a discussion around when we could reschedule it at this point until we get a little further into at least until after May 4th, and kind of see where things are going.
Okay, so we'll just say that it's postponed for now and we'll regroup at a later time. Okay. Thanks, Paula. That's all that I have. If any other board member announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into our property owner comments.
All right, and for our attendees, I do already have a raised hand. If you'd like to speak during property owners comments, just use the little raised hand feature, or if you're calling in, *9. I'll go ahead and bring Nancy in. And just go ahead and give your name and address, I suppose, like if it was in front of the mic.
Hi, I'm Nancy Alionak for Sandalwood Circle. And this is a new system, so I'm looking at new buttons and new ways to get connected. So sorry about this. I'm curious, any word on when the Whatcom County Library will open in Sudden Valley?
Nancy, this is Joe. I'm actually going to be talking with Liz tomorrow a little bit. I'll try to get that information for you and see what I can find out. Does that work?
That works. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Nancy. I'll go ahead and return you back to the audience there. And anybody else? Yep, we have somebody here. I'll go ahead and bring them in. Listed as Michael Wadsworth. If you could announce yourself as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Mike Wadsworth, 5 Western Lane. I wanted to thank Joe for allowing me the opportunity to sell hot dogs. I know it's against the board rules and everything, and it did help a little bit. What has come up now is my commissary kitchen is kind of closing me off. They don't want the traffic in and out. So without a commissary kitchen, I can't work. So Friday and Saturday are going to be my last 2 days doing this. And so I'm just going to, just shut it down. I don't want to get sick either. So with the, distancing and all, it's kind of hard at arm's length to hand somebody a hot dog. So at any rate, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get anyone sick. I have to function within the rules of the health department and my commissary kitchen. And so with that being, they're requesting me not to come in and out. It's another restaurant that I'm using, and they don't want to risk anything either. And so they told me Saturday night would be my last until this thing's cleared up, and it might be a few weeks, and then they'll let us all back out again. Who knows? But anyhow, I wanted to thank you all for letting me do it. I know it created a little bit of stress and tension. it actually kind of hurt me on my unemployment anyway. But at any rate, I was trying to make some money to pay my bills, and it was the only thing I had. So thank you all for being patient, and I hope that'll solve the hot dog gate war problem.
I have a question for you, Mike. What do you need as far as a commissary kitchen? What are you looking to do?
I'm going to shut down.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best thing for me to stay safe. I'll be 70 this year, so I'm kind of getting up there in the risky you anyway. So
you look more like 29, but that's okay. But are you sure you really want to do that? Because if you want to talk to me, we might try to figure something out.
Well, my wife and I have pretty much talked it out, and we're kind of set that we're just going to shut it down. We believe that in a month or two, we all should be back out slowly in normalcy. And I got enough money to live 2 months. So I appreciate your concern and your humanness in all of you. So thank you.
Okay. Mike, if you need anything, reach out to me.
No problem.
All right, thank you, Mike. And I'll go ahead and return you to the audience here. Anyone else? Oh, we have one more hand here from C. Keller. Go ahead and announce yourself.
Hey, this is Chris Keller for Saffron Court. Y'all look well. I sure haven't seen all those faces for a while, so everybody looks good. That's nice. Hey, just curious, I'm a dog aficionado. Probably all know that. When are we going to be able to have the parking available so that we can walk up the trail up at the golf course? So we don't have to walk all the way up that side, up that highway to get there. Is that going to be opened anytime? I mean, I haven't driven up there for a few days, so if it's open, I'm sorry. But
you mean the campground?
Yeah, the campground parking lot, so we can park up there and walk our dogs up the backside of Galbraith. When's that going to open back up? I mean, I ride my motorcycle around, and there's plenty of parking spaces open for people to hike and make their way up there, but it's a long ways from here for me to drag my dogs in the back of the truck. Be nice if I could park up there. But just saying, we're ahead of the governor on some stuff and we seem to be behind him on others. This seems to be one of those ones where having some parking available for people to get off the road and hike up the backside of Galbraith would be kind of nice.
Want me to chime in? Chris, I actually had that shut down due to the social distancing, and the day that we went to stay at home, stay safe, it was out of control in the campground with people coming in from outside the area playing Frisbee golf, even though it was torn down. So that is why that's shut down.
It's still a hiking area and there's no way for anybody to get up there. There's parking lots for hiking areas. There's parking lots for beaches. People are going to do some of that stuff. And it just doesn't make any sense to me that I got to park on the side of the road and walk up there somewhere. There's nowhere for me to park and do that. It just doesn't make any sense. Social distancing. I mean, it's a parking lot, guys. Nobody's social distancing in parking lots. I don't get that at all. I drive all over the place and every single parking lot for every hiking trail around is open except for that one. So I'd like you guys to talk about it and maybe come up with I don't understand why people can't park there and use those trails.
Hey, Chris.
Social distance.
Hi, Chris. This is Karen. I know it's tricky. That does seem like a great place to go, but my family, we drove all over Skagit a couple weeks ago looking for a new place to hike, and all the DNR land is closed. There's just,
I get that. Drive down Chuckanut. Every single one of them's open. Every single one of them. Every single hiking, every single place to park and hike is open. This is what I'm saying. It's all over the place. It's just, there's a million places people park, and the parking lot being too close together for social distancing doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I listened to the governor's thing the other night, and one of the things he said was that hoping to open up some recreation. So I am hoping, Norm just gave us a really detailed view. They're in these county and unified command meetings all the time. I know there's more going on than we probably know. I get it. I was surprised that was closed too. But at the same time, you know, the people making these decisions are.
The governor
you know,
didn't make the decision, guys. This decision was made internally. The governor hasn't forced anybody to close down any hiking other than the national. The reason why those parking lots are not blocked off with logs is because it's okay by the governor, and they have been the whole time.
every single DNR land has a big sign on it that says closed, and they're gated off. So Chuckanut might be open, but all the ones in Skagit. Anyway, I'm hoping that we'll get more, you know, the recreation will be some of the things open up and we can get more access to some of this stuff. And I'm also hoping that when we get a little bit more leniency, people will continue to follow the rules so they don't wreck it for everyone. So I get where you're coming from.
Good luck with that. They're people. They're going to go up there. They're going to hang out on the benches. They're going to sit down on their picnic blankets. And right now you just got people walking up the side of the road with their dogs, like up the back trails.
Yeah.
A question for you, Chris. Have you tried, I've seen people over in that parking lot that goes up onto Lookout Mountain. People are still accessing that, I believe.
Yeah, it's still full sometimes too. And that's why it's nice to go up to the other parking lot and hike up.
I have a question for Joe. Or for Karen.
Interestingly, that one's not on Chuckanut and it's open.
I have
Just
a question
throwing that out
for
there.
Joe and for Karen. I don't know if the disc golf has put up a notice for everybody that they have pulled their baskets and they're closed. And could we possibly make a smaller parking area down there? So maybe you've got 1 or 2 people that walk dogs. But I'm saying if you don't tell anybody that the disc golf's not there or that it's closed because of the governor's order, sure, you're going to have those guys coming out there looking to play.
No, we can't. It's not a bad deal to park there and ride your mountain bike up there either.
Yeah,
Not
I'm just
walking
gonna,
your dog.
I just chime in here and kind of support what Chris is saying. I mean, we got the golf course open to allow people to kind of walk around on it. This area is kind of used for the same thing. Disc golf is pretty much the same activity as walking. I mean, I've been playing disc golf most of my life. You know, the parking lot over for Lookout is open. I think, you know, to some extent, there's some safety hazards, which the large logs placed in the clear zone.
AJ, I checked with Jay Thompson. They are perfectly legal. He's already checked them and looked at them, which is the county sheriff.
Yeah, I mean, I understand like the county sheriff. It just, for me, from an engineering perspective, I have some concerns with the clear zone distances between some of those logs are 2 to 3 feet off of the fog line. If someone hits one of those, some of them are pretty large. You know, they're gonna stop a car dead in their tracks. And it's also caused, like, I see a lot more people parking on the side of the road there, which isn't typical.
Yeah.
So now we have this new kind of conflict point happening that typically, you know, we've always known that parking lot's there and it can get full, but we typically haven't seen it spill out onto like the shoulders of the road and stuff on the county road. And we're kind of seeing people just saying, well, damn it, I'm already out here. I'm going to park right here and hope it's not super soggy and my car doesn't sink while I'm away doing my activity. You know, I don't know. I'm not here to say one way or the other, but I guess just to throw my 2 cents in, I do support Chris and, you know, Joe, I'm going to support whatever decision you make, you know, obviously. Just going to throw my 2 cents in there as to an opinion, though.
All right. Hey, thanks. It's just a little odd.
We have gone way over 3 minutes on this property owner comment.
Thank you.
Board response, please.
Can I answer Linda's question real quick? She asked if if the disc golf community knew, and as far as I knew, they had sent out an email to all of their members that the Whatcom County Disc Golf, whatever that association is called, did let all of their members know. But that doesn't mean that the general public knew.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that's
concerned
true, Karen. Adam did tell me that they sent out that notice to their members, so. But that, yeah, again, anyone who's using just some sort of app to find disc golf courses or something wouldn't know that.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up question? I mean, it's kind of a broader question in that. What have we done with other areas? I've been to El Agave. That's pretty much the only parking lot that I've been to. What have we done with, say, like the AM/PM parking lots? Are we cordoning off other areas as well? Or is that the only one that we've blocked off?
AM/PM is also cordoned off. We have that cordoned off as well.
It has the bar across it.
Yeah, the gates just across. The parking lots that are open right now are the main clubhouse, golf, Barn 6, and the marina parking lot.
I just wanted to say that I don't think that the intent was bad. I mean, I think that what you had mentioned, that there were some people going up there. I think it's okay to analyze it and say it's not working like we wanted it to do. Maybe think about moving it. We are, getting a little more compliant, I would say. I think it's a valid point. People are parking right along the side of the road. So it's okay to say that we did it with the right intention, and maybe we'll do it different also.
All right, well, if that's everything with Chris, I'll go ahead and return you to the audience, and we can see if anybody else has a property owner comment. And not seeing hands at this time. No more hands raised, it looks like.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to our property owners, Nancy, Michael, and Chris. And I just want to say, before we move on, thank you to Joe, especially on the Michael front, just for finding, creative ways to support our neighbors during this extremely challenging time. So just want to give kudos to Joe. Thank you. We'll move into our general manager's report. Or excuse me, no, we need to approve our consent agenda. So looking for a motion.
Hi,
So
it's
moved.
Linda. Move to approve the consent agenda for the sets of minutes listed by acclamation of the board, please.
Second.
Motion carries by acclamation.
Is that
Okay.
Mike that seconded?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a second.
I second it, Mike.
Thought I heard Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, we just got a chat from someone, from Gail. Stop touching your faces, everyone.
Good reminder. Thank you.
I haven't left my house in days. These are in-house
Don't touch your face, Josh.
face feelers.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Okay, Joe, take it away, please.
One real quick thing to answer Nancy's question. I got a text from Liz. They will not reopen the library until the governor lifts the social distancing part of that. So the library will remain closed. So sorry, I would hope that we could get it open, but it's not happening.
Joe, as a follow-up, I'm a member and I have an online link to them. They've asked that we also, any of our materials that we have and stuff checked out at the time, we're supposed to hang on to because they've got their book drops and stuff and everything closed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a member of the library. So Linda, thank you for that information.
Okay.
I'm not going to read through my report. I find it easier in this type of stuff to answer anybody's question since we're a million miles apart. So I will field questions because instead of reading it, I'd rather do that right now until we get to sit down and go face to face, more or less.
I got a question.
Sure, AJ.
So obviously the golf course has been closed and we've had the ability to walk and utilize it more as a park feature. I am learning just recently that maybe we have these same options available to us come sometime summertime during foot golf time or something. I'm just rather enjoying walking, and my son's loving biking on the trails and stuff. And so I'm trying to find out when we can do that moving forward. And I know a lot of other people are curious about that.
Yeah, you know what, AJ, it has been absolutely wonderful to see people out there and all the kids, the bikes and everything on the golf course. It is a nice thing to see. Foot golf is, I want to say Wednesdays and Friday nights, but don't hold me to that. I will get that information put out in the next e-blast and I'll get with Brian and get all that out. But I want to say it's Wednesday and Friday nights.
And we're allowed to walk the course and trails then during foot golf?
It has been noted that you could in years past. So again, I don't see why that wouldn't be a thing, but I want to double check. I don't want to put everybody into a trap yet, but let me look into it. But I do know there is foot golf when I think it's Wednesday and Friday nights, and and it's on the front nine. So
so we'd have half the course to walk.
Yeah, you can walk the front nine. Yeah, yeah.
And the front nine is the water.
Yeah, that's the
side.
The lower side. Yeah.
Okay.
Comes around by the marina and everything.
Awesome. It's the nice side for sure.
Yeah,
Haven't done foot golf?
It's flat.
I would highly suggest it. We've taken our kids out and grandkids a couple of times and it's a blast. If you haven't done foot golf, here's a promo for it when it opens up.
I have not tried it. Definitely liking walking the trails though. Only flattish trails around.
That is the flat side. I will.
When you got a 3-year-old, they don't really like uphill travel too much.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yeah,
he scoffs at the hills on the golf course, so we're not going too many other places then.
In years past, it started around 6:30 p.m. too, I think until dark. So this was kind of something that Brian actually used to be on our Parks and Trails committee, and it kind of came through conversations with that. I think it's been going on for about 3 years, and it's 2 evenings a week. One of them has been a weekend night. And yeah, I think it starts around 6:30 typically, but I suspect it could always change a little bit. But
yeah, well, in the summer, 6:30 to dark is about 2.5, 3 hours.
It is. Yeah, you could walk that thing several times. It's about 2 miles, the front nine?
I want to say the whole loop is somewhere in 6.5, 7. So you figure about average half of about 3.5.
I need a better calibrated GPS then. Mine doesn't say it's that long.
That's what
Mine comes in around 5.
I haven't walked the cart path. I have walked the course a couple times. It's a long ways, I'll tell you that.
Yep.
I have
And those hills are killers.
Uh-huh.
I have some questions for Joe. On page 4, and Karen may want to log in on this too. It talks about staffing changes currently. And I thought I saw that Parks and Trails group were working, but I don't see them listed in here under the different staffing levels on 4 and 5.
Yeah, we do have the guys on Parks and Trails are still working.
Okay, like I say, they're not listed there. Turf Care's listed there.
Well,
they're under turf care?
They're under turf care.
Well, that's where they are. All right. It just, when you don't see them, I treat them as a separate entity. So that's my
You know what, Linda, you're correct. They are separate entities, so they probably should be. I'll separate them out for the next report.
And then I had I had a question on page 10. couple of them. Under aquatics, it says, working on purchasing push-to-talk communication systems for lifeguards at the main pool and new emergency communication system for SVCA.
It's part of the push-to-talks is part of our communications that we use within Sudden Valley. When they did the pool, they did not put any phones in the pool. So I need some way to communicate to the outside world.
Yeah, it's just this, after I kind of understood that, it's this new emergency communication system for SVCA. It doesn't say just the community center or the pools, that's all.
It's all, we use push to talk across all of the departments.
Gotcha. Is Lakeside Marine down under Marina on 10? Are they still scheduled to start on time?
They have received their deposit check. They're putting in the permits for emergency replacement of the dock. So we're rolling with that. One of the things that I am working on is everybody knows that they have a lot of the stuff shut down. DNR has the 2 launches in the south part of the lake shut. We are shut right now, as well as Bodell is open, but no one has AIS stickers. So we're working. The problem is you got 3 entities. You got the county, you got the city, and you got the state. And we are trying to find a compromise to work with all those agencies to get our marina up and going, and not have any issues with the invasive species. So I'm working with that right now with Norm through county and all that good stuff. So really trying to get a big push to get that marina open for us.
I was gonna say, if the lake stays closed, how is that going to affect our marina income?
Well, the lake isn't, this is where it gets tricky, Linda, because the state, it's a DNR waterway. DNR shuts the 2 down there. The Bodell is open, which is city, and we're kind of literally stuck in the middle. So DNR has not officially shut the water off. They just haven't, but they won't let you put in, let's put it that way. So,
Gotcha.
And that's the stuff, this is where you got the 3 entities and neither one of them really wants to talk to each other. And we're kind of literally stuck in the middle, and I'm trying to get some type of in writing that we're going to go, AIS is going to inspect and we can put in. That's what I'm working on.
The other thing I wondered is under Marina also, there's a note, it's several bullets down. It says preparing for kayak and canoe renewals to start right after Marina renewals at the end of May. So if we basically charge by the year, those people are sitting there basically for free now because we haven't billed the kayaks.
Kayaks are for, I believe, and I'll check with Andrea on it, I believe they go from June 1st to the end of May. So I will check with her on her timeline on those.
Okay, because it's getting kind of funny. It used to be at like our year was a year, January to the end of the year. And yeah, you used to have people. I used to do the marina when I worked for Sudden Valley. And you used to have a lot of people, they were supposed to pay in March and didn't want to pay until June. And until I got a general manager that said, if you don't want to pay, you can leave and someone else will get your spot. People came running in and paid. But that's why I'm saying it's just, I wanted to just have some clarification on that.
And I'll get you that timeline from Andrea.
That works. I think I have just a couple more questions and then I'll be done here. Let me find. On page 14, you're talking about they're going to start up Clean Green here soon.
Yes.
And we're not going to drive down into Area Z. They're going to be putting it across from the Gate 5 entrance.
Yeah, in the we have an overflow parking lot in there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but what we're not going to do for this is charge. Just come in, drop it off. We will then bring our chipper in and chip it at that point. We're trying to avoid the human interaction, the social distancing part.
Gotcha. So but that road used to be that's not, well, maybe they've improved it with some gravel, but that used to be kind of a challenge if you didn't have an SUV.
Yeah, I've been down in there and I have an SUV, but the road is pretty good.
Well, I'm saying you have a big truck too.
Yeah, but again, I think I could get a little Honda Civic down in there.
Okay.
I think the road is a lot better than what you remember, because it's actually not a bad road from what I could tell.
They've maybe been improving it since they
Yeah.
first put it in. It's been in there a while. My last question comes under maintenance on page 15.
Okay.
And it's under the bulleted thing under preventative maintenance tasks.
Yes.
And it says, for most of all the call-in requests for assistance and corrective work during the past 3 weeks, there were no work orders generated. Then how do you know where you're at if they haven't been generated? And it said, this is happening more often than not now. Then how do you know what time has been spent on call-in requests? And yet I assume then they fall behind on those that are already listed for them.
Right now, the only people calling in would be with the minimal staff is Maddie over in Rec, Lisa and myself. We're the only ones really doing anything. So there's not a lot of call-ins. So that was just a bullet that Bruce put in there just to keep everybody up to date. So.
Yeah, I just was wondering about that because it's like sometimes there can be, all we have to do is have a little bit of windstorm or it's just, I'm saying, how do you keep track of that? And the other thing that he said is, and I don't know how you create that, is the whole thing of hours expended to start, stop, and restart a task. And it's like, I guess I don't understand why that's so hard to track.
I have the same issue, and I've talked to Bruce a little bit, and I'm going to talk to him some more about it.
Okay.
It seems pretty easy because if I'm on a project and I pull my team off, they were there for an hour, I pull them off. They're gone for an hour, I put them back on for an hour, 2 hours. It's not.
Yeah.
I've talked to him. I'm going to talk to him some more on that.
Okay, I've got a question, but I'll wait. It kind of fits in with financials more than anything else.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Joe, I've got just a kind of a question. Well, number one, I was really glad to see that Firewise is going to come around for a second time. So great job to your crews for getting those pickups done sooner than planned and giving us another round of it. I think there's a lot of people that I've seen that are going to be really excited to see that. So thank you and good job on that.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to the team.
Yeah. Second, on the maintenance backlog, are you able right now to make any kind of headway with redirecting people into some of those backlogs on corrective and repair maintenance? And would you see if you were able to get grants or for instance, the PPP, if that comes back around to be able to get some more done on that, because we're still sitting at 1,900 hours on backlog on corrective and repair maintenance.
Yeah, we are getting caught up with it being shut down. And that's one of the nice things with the buildings being shut down. It gives us a chance to get in there and get everything done because we don't have to worry about interfering with anybody.
Great.
And we've been moving them around. I don't know if anybody's noticed, we did all the roofs here in this building, the air conditioning unit out in the parking lot. They got those all blown off. They got the gutters clean. So, I mean, they are catching up with that, which is a nice thing because there's no one around.
Yeah, I'd be really, and I asked that because we're doing that at my company as well. We're bringing people back specifically to get caught up on things. So I would be interested maybe next month or the month after to just kind of see how much you think has been attributable to this, maybe a little silver lining.
Okay.
Good
And
news.
just to let you know, maintenance is one of the only departments, is actually that is fully operational. There's no one that's laid off. None of those guys are working from home. So it's a nice thing. They're here, they're working every day, and they're doing a lot of stuff. So
I'm glad to hear that. Thanks.
Hey, Joe.
yes, Josh.
Paulo asked about the backlog. I was going to ask about that, but that's cool. Under the clean green, it talks about area Z overflowing with brush and decomposing wood chips. Is there anything that's going to be done to clear that out, or?
Once I'll check with Bruce, but my thought would be once they chip everything, we can just push it off.
Okay.
It'll just be piles of wood chips. Or if you guys want to walk in there and grab some, I know they've done that in the past, that they've let people take some of the wood chips for around their yards. So kind of like they do there on the county on down the road a little bit.
Right.
Is there anybody there to help load, or are there liability issues with people loading up on their own on our property?
I don't think there would be. The county allows it.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, do you know, I thought I remembered when the people that are building our new dock, when they were there, he said he can kind of prefabricate it in their, whatever.
In their shop, yes.
Yeah, shop, that's the word. Do you know if they're able to do that?
I'll check with him. I don't know that right off the top
Okay.
of my head. I don't want to say yes or no, but I will check and let you know. But he did say that he can prefab in his shop and come in and drop it in once we're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look.
And I don't know if that's deemed a essential
Right.
person.
Essential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essential.
I was just curious if you knew. Maybe if you did, you didn't want to say. Anyway, I noticed that the park, the playground equipment at the barns is complete. So good job getting that done. We can't use it, it's closed off.
It took a little longer than what we wanted, but we got it in there and it's done. So the minute we have a lift of all this stay home, stay safe stuff, I want to do a grand opening of that one.
Oh, good. It looks really good.
Yeah,
It really
does.
looks good.
It does. Yeah.
It does look good, and I'm happy that it was completed in a timely fashion. Although now when my kiddos walk by it, it's like war trying to keep them off of it. So thanks.
The joys of little kids. They are so wonderful.
Any further questions for Joe? Okay, we'll move into our treasurer's report.
All right.
Okay, is Joel there?
Yeah, we're switching chairs.
Huh.
Welcome, Joel.
Hello there. Hi there.
Joe, did you want to go over the treasurer's report, please?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to dive right into the financial statements. I'm just going to talk about the highlights. So I'm going to start out on page 23 of your packet. This is just the balance sheet. There's, of course, at this point of the year, reporting at the end of February, that, no COVID sort of type of ramifications are popping up yet at this point. Net operating assets are good, better than last year in terms of the increase. Cash balances are really good. Reserve balances are good. And so the balance sheet at this point looks great, quite frankly. Now, if we flip the page to page 24, so I'm looking at basically kind of your third column from the right. Third, and okay, so the collection rate at the end of February, so this is year to date, 90.6%. Last year at this time, it was 92%. We're still digging out from January, where it's 86.5%. January is, of course, historically your lowest month when it comes to collections. Back in 2018, it was 88.4% as well in January. Skipping down to like net income loss, $73,232 net operational net income at the end of 29 or February 2020. It was 42,184 last year, which is an improvement. This year at this point, we're approximately about 14,645 in terms of worse than budget. Last year at this time it was 95,550, so we're pretty close in terms of being on to budget. The expenses to revenues ratio, of course, I've been talking about this over the months. Expenses to revenues ratio, that just means for every dollar of expenses, how much did you have, or for every dollar of revenues, how much did you have in expenses? In this case, it was 88%. Last year, it was 93%. A higher number is worse. So we're better this year than we were last year at this time. So it basically just means for every dollar of revenues, you had 88 cents in expenditures. Last year, for every dollar of revenues, you had 93 cents in expenditures. Turning the page to page 25. Now we're looking at the capital reserve funds, basically the cash balances of your capital accounts. Now what I've done for this is you'll see I have already built into this thing on the left where it talks about like 10-month outlook towards that kind of last group of numbers. Outlook at 2020 dues, 92% collections. You'll see a couple of asterisks there with the footnote. Basically what I'm telling you is I've already built into this cash kind of projection the fact that we're not collecting April dues in this. So this is already taking the hit in terms of the fact that April dues are not being charged to anyone. And even with that, we're still better at this point in terms of increase or decrease in cash, or just net usable cash 12/31/2020, the bottom line numbers. So these cash balances are better actually in a sense than where they were last year, of course. And this is all due to spending, like capital really was driving this. If you turn the page to 26, basically, so what you're looking at with this here again, it's the income statement, but now it's broken down by department. And lately I've been talking about golf, so I'll talk about golf again on the. So what we're looking at just the month, so just the current month, February, and golf had revenues of 39,738. Last year they had, or last year at the end of February they had 24,798 in revenues. This year they had total expenditures of 70,723. Last year they had expenditures 58,407. However, the net income at the end of February was negative 30,095. Of course, they're pretty much projected to run negative at this point. Last year they were negative 33,609. So that is still an improvement. The maintenance is really the only thing that's kind of what's under budget the most in terms of net income loss. Better or worse, 12,998, and that's all related to this weather stuff, the snowstorm. Actually, let me take that back. Last year, so when we look at a year to date, that's related to the snowstorm. Last year we're better in terms of where we were in February of 2019, and that's because last year your snowstorm was in February instead of January this year. So if you looked at last year, you'd see net better, worse. It was worse last year in February than this year. Now, when you flip the page to page 27, we're looking at this exact same statement, only we're looking at this year to this point, January 1, 2020 to February 29, 2020. So now you can see under the maintenance, net better, worse, worse off by 62,387, and that's related to the snowstorm. The snowstorm is really what's doing that. So the net income loss for maintenance, negative 127, 157. Last year is negative 133, 483. Of course, last year you had a big snowstorm you were dealing with as well in February. So at this point, the two snowstorms are catching up year to date. If we go back to golf, revenues on golf this year, the end of February, 198,420. Last year, 171,491, increase of close to 27,000. Expenditures were actually fairly similar, 102,600 total for golf last year, or I mean this year. Last year is about 100,467. However, the net income loss for golf at the end of February, 95,820. Last year it was 71,024. Now those are pretty much the big highlights on the financial statements. So if you had any questions.
Hi, it's Linda here. I have a couple of them. We had said we looked at a sheet from you that Leslie gave us last time where we thought that we were going to have approximately 82,000 by the end of February. We're down about 10,000, not quite. So we're, it's like we're evidently have less than we thought we were going to have. And it's just, even with, then I had a question too. Ken's charged us in February $3,564 in the UDR. They're only allowed $1,200 a month. So I'm wondering, where does this additional $1,100 they're charging us come from? Because it can't be from working in the gym.
Yeah, Linda, this question actually came with the finance committee. Actually, all you're looking at right here is just a timing of the invoice that he sent us. So basically, he ended up sending us like several invoices at once. So it's really just nothing but a matter of timing.
But how can he charge us for work he hasn't done?
No, one of those invoices, I
the
believe.
gym's been closed.
Yeah, well, one of those, these statements are as of the end of February, what you're looking at. So
Yeah, so you would only have what's in the first 2 months of the year.
no, not precisely. In this case, one of those related to December. Now, like in a perfect world, yes, we could go back and open up December and put it in, but it's just not worth it for $1,000. So that typically happens in accounting.
So you're saying that one of these amounts then is for December in a prior year, and then January and February of this year.
That's right. Yeah, because each one of these invoices is approximately 1,000 something or other.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I had one question, and I don't know if we save it for a different place other than the treasurer's report. I guess I'm wondering, so in theory, we're going to have absolutely nothing declared in dues for April on the income statement?
Yes, that's correct, Linda. Nothing will show up. The accounting system is set to not charge any property owner for April dues. And actually, so, which is a good point. So I'll bring this up again because I still get these questions. If someone sends a check in for April dues, since no one will be charged for April dues, that will just sit on their account as a credit, and then it will automatically apply to May dues.
But aren't you going to have, oh, this is weird. So I'm one of them there folks that's prepaid dues.
Uh-huh.
I just came in and paid my July and August dues. And what I'm saying is I always understood when things were prepaid, they had to be booked into the month that they were booked into. And I'm assuming some of this $200-some thousand that we have in prepaid dues would fall into that category of being April dues.
Oh, yes, that's correct. So if anyone gives us a check, it'll be prepaid dues and it'll sit under the current liabilities as prepaid dues. However, it will not show up on this income statement until that revenue has been realized or earned, in a sense.
But you won't be current because you'll be putting it in May. That's why I'm saying, I think May's going to Maybe I'm wrong, but
No,
isn't
no.
May gonna look skewed?
No, because actually, because we'll just say you're the only property owner. And then we started this whole thing in April, and then you give me the dues, your check for April dues.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I declare, oh, I'm not going to charge you for April dues. So that in that point, or in this case, your check that you gave me would sit in the current liabilities as a prepaid asset. Or the cash will be a prepaid asset, and then it'll be a current liability also. Not prepaid asset. It's basically, just think about it like this. It's going to sit as a current liability, but on the income statement itself in April, there will be nothing until May.
Okay. I'm just saying, there's money in there right now. And I don't know how many people are paid how many months ahead. If somebody's paid a whole year ahead, I don't know. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying, don't you eventually get to the end of the year where sooner or later, you've got to put all those prepaids?
You're talking about on the income statement?
Just the money itself.
Yeah, the money itself cannot go on the income statement until we actually can charge you, so to speak, for that month.
Yep,
Until
that's
we
what
can
I'm
do that,
saying.
Yeah, until we can do that, it'll sit in the current liability until we either earn it, like we have a right to charge you, or until you come in and say, well, I want a refund, and then we'll issue you a refund. Then that current liability will drop because of that refund.
So let's say we get to December, here we're pretending now.
Uh-huh.
And because we were off by a month for some of us, won't we have extra money at the end of the year? Do you just throw it all in a big pot?
Oh, yeah. So at the end of the year, if someone, like in this case, you prepaid your dues for the entire year, and then what we didn't charge you in April, that will just sit as a current liability. So it won't.
Paid does that get picked up then in a future year?
It gets picked up in a future year, like for example, in January. Then I can put it on, I can apply that to say like your January charges. So then it'll hit the January income statement.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out how that all works.
Yeah. It's
basically because we've never done this before.
Yeah, basically when you give us money, what happens is, and you're prepaying stuff, then from an accounting sense, you'll see the debit show up in cash, and then the credit will show up as a current liability, or it'll just show up as, it'll show up as a liability. In
Okay.
that liability section.
I think that's all I've got.
I had a question. Do you happen to know off the top of your head how much the snowstorm cost us in January? Round number.
I know Norma and I put this together actually. I want to say Joe was like, yeah, it was like, it was, we'll say 60, 70,000 in that neighborhood. Where it
That's
was.
how much it cost, and how much did we have budgeted for snow removal? I thought it was around 60,000. Is that, or am I?
I think it was 15,000. I think we only budgeted 15 on it.
15. Oh, okay. Okay.
If you like, especially go to the maintenance income statement on the full report online, you'll see a lot of that is sitting in weather, and that did not have a corresponding budget attached to it. So that's actually what's driving this over budget in the maintenance department.
I'll go look at the detail. I know we talked about it at the finance committee meeting. Have you started closing the books for, I guess not, because March isn't over, or yeah, it is. We're almost at the end. Have you started closing the books for March? Do you have a sense of where we are with collections?
Oh, yeah, I can tell you for March. Actually, and it's also in here on the manager's report. So March, for the month of March, it was 97.8%, meaning it's pulling our collection rate average for the 3 months up to 93%.
Okay.
For the end of March. And that's this, and this is kind of like what Karen is driving at. This would be kind of the big question mark in terms of how this pandemic shutdown thing will affect us going forward, in terms of, since April has been, we're not charging anyone in April, we won't really know how this is really going to hit the collection rate until May is finished. Then we can see what it's really doing to May at that point.
And do you have a sense, generally where we are revenue versus expenses for March? Just kind of an estimate. Are we ahead, behind?
You know, of course, I mean, I have some numbers off the top of my head, but I don't want to say until I actually go back and make sure that those numbers are correct.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of where we're at in these uncertain times, but it's better to have good numbers than junk.
Yeah, and Joe wanted to chime in on the snow removal. When we did the budget, when I did the budget last year, I took a linear average over the last few years. And I want to say originally I came up to somewhere around 55 or 60 grand that we have spent over the years for snow removal. In an effort to keep dues as low as we could, we took it back down to around 15 grand. We're going to be really close to that number. So our even though you might get a year where you have only spent maybe 15 or 18,000, there are years where we have spent in excess of 120,000. So again, when you do snow removal, kind of not a bad idea to look at your averages. Just again for that going forward. And I know I know we did that last year in the budget cycle. So
yeah.
I have a question maybe for Leslie, or it's Leslie and Joel. We talked last meeting, we're just looking at February now. And traditionally, we've only been a month behind where we'd be looking at March right now. And I wonder, when are we going to catch up, especially if we may be looking at things and forecasting for where we are if things don't open up until in June?
Well, we had a discussion at the Finance Committee meeting about reforecasting. And you want to do that when you know that things are going to change. And right now, things are up in the air. Things could get back open. And so where the accounting is looking at doing one reforecasting, assuming that things open up on May 4th, and reforecasted for June 1st. And then if things just keep going through the summer and don't open up until the end of the year, there's a second reforecasting that they're working on for September 1st. And some of the things that we are concerned about right now, will the pools open or not? We don't know. Will golf open now? Will it go until September? We don't know that. The beaches are closed. That of course is not revenue, but it's just one of the things we're also looking at. The marina. Who knows if we're going to be able to use the marina this year or not? And then with this possibility of getting the loan from the Small Business Administration, that throws another wrinkle into it. And so accounting is still looking at doing a reforecast, and they probably will not get any better numbers until at least 2 weeks from now.
I guess, Leslie, what I'm saying, March should be, tell me if I'm wrong, which isn't, the month of March should be closed because we're almost at the end of April. Correct, Joel?
Yeah, I can tell you, Linda, like for example, when you close an accounting system, there are all sorts of closing entries that have to be done. And I don't prepare these statements until every single bank account has been reconciled as well. So like I could have already jumped ahead and it just prepared March just for the heck of it, just to get it out there. But I don't prepare financial statements until every single closing entry is done and until like all the bank reconciliations are finished. And just to let you know, we have about 29 bank accounts.
I guess my concern is in years past, the board has never worked 2 months back. And if you're looking at the sort of revenues and things that we don't have, if things, let's say golf doesn't get to open up for a while, let's say the pools don't get to open up for a while. So then we're looking at old information because we're working 2 months back. That's what I'm concerned with. We've never had to do that before.
The major numbers that we calculate for projections and stuff like that can be calculated fairly easily, meaning like the meat of projections can be calculated like upfront, so to speak. So like what you're seeing in terms of financial statements is in a sense, like the finished product, so to speak, in terms of like all the closing entries that are in, all the bank reconciliations that are reconciled that lends into these financial statements. But in terms of forecasting, that's a different matter.
Oh, I understand. You're doing something like when you look at our budgets and where were we in prior years, and then going how many months in a year to be able to do analysis and stuff and move things forward. My point is, we're still working with old information.
And you know, in a sense, Linda, it's not that old, quite frankly. So like this information that you're looking at, this is April, you're looking at February at this point. Most places that you, if you were to look at most companies, you're not going to get monthly financial statements every single month. You would probably get quarterly at most. So for this to be April and to look at February, you're looking at February because I've closed all the entries and I've reconciled every single bank account. So I could have given you March tonight if I just skipped over some of these things just to give you some numbers for the heck of it. So that's, I mean, you don't just push F7 and then all of a sudden all these reports come out. That's the thing. There are calculations and stuff that take time to do.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I'm just telling you that even if you go back into when you worked for us before, our financials that we got that the board received were only a month back. Does that mean that the accounting manager was not reconciling all these bank statements and stuff before we got our financial statements? I don't know if that's what you're telling me, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I don't know in terms of like, from that standpoint either. I'm just telling you the process that I do.
But Linda, this is why the finance committee has kind of asked for this forecast, because, you know, Joel can see what some of these numbers are and he can see the trends, and then he can put them into a forecast for us. And then we can base, you know, if we need to make decisions or adjustments during this pandemic time or for budgeting in particular, you know, I think we even saw last year we had the data, but just we hadn't really updated our budget to see some of the trends. And so that's some of the stuff that we want to see, where a forecast is a little bit more flexible in that regard, even that looking at historical data. So that was kind of the thought. We can still have accurate financial statements, but we can have this forward-looking forecast that is taking into account some of the trends that we're seeing, and then particularly in this time, you know, noting some of the changes things that have changed since budget. So it kind of, I think it's getting to what you're talking about, whereas we don't want to rely on old data, but a reforecast can kind of help us have that data based on what we know now, and it kind of helps solve that problem.
It'll point out some potential trends that are going forward and allow us to see if there's any areas of that are troubling that we need to address right now, based on what our projections are for the next several months.
Working with old data.
Okay, any more questions on the
I've got nothing else.
Okay.
Okay, Joel, thank you very much. Leslie, anything else on that front?
Thank you.
I certainly really appreciate the how you broke down the financials, Joel. It was really, you made it easy for me to understand, so thank you.
Oh, sure, yeah, no problem, thanks.
Okay, we'll dive into our committee reports. ACC. Looks like it's as submitted. Finance. Also as submitted. N&E.
As submitted, and the think the item that I have under here about the board vacancy update, you've already had during announcements. I will make a little bit of a heads up. We are looking at 4 third-party vendors currently. And I hope that in the real near future, we are going to bring something to the board to deal with a third-party vendor for our election in November. That's all I got.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, anything else on committee reports before we move into our audit discussion, auditor discussion?
Yeah, I just had a quick, Linda, that was for the electronic voting?
It's basic, it's more than that. It's called, we're going to have a third-party vendor that handles the electronic voting. Not everybody in the valley, and Mike can tell you that. Mike will love to have, much rather have a paper ballot. There's no way in the valley that we're ever going to be able to have totally online.
Right.
These are hybrid, and they will handle all of our mail ballots. They will handle all online voting, and that'll be available. I hope to get an article in the May Views that'll kind of put that out there for the first time for people, because I'm sure, you know, nobody's really heard. We've been waiting to hear back from people. It's been kind of challenging because there's a lot of people that do all online voting. There's a lot of people that will sell you your own software and you take care of it. Once again, then staff and volunteers get to do it. As it is now, most of this will all be done by somebody that's third party and handle it.
Thanks for that explanation.
Okay.
Hey, Linda, what kind of criteria are you guys using to select these companies?
What sort of criteria?
Yeah, like how do you know?
Then they come up here and find me. Here's an example. So we have 4 vendors. One's based out of Canada. One's based out of New York. One's based here in Washington State. And one's based in California. And they do elections all over the place. They basically, many of them I've sent samples of our ballots, of our bylaws, of our NNE manual and the processes that we follow and that we need to follow. And most of them can meet it in one way or the others. There's some that I have concerns about, but that's something that we're going to discuss as a committee and hopefully come up with one person that we think can handle this really well for providing this in November. You know, if I keep hearing all this stuff about that the virus and the flu can come back in the fall, I don't want to sit with a room full of volunteers with gloves on and masks trying to open ballots and read them all. It's just, you know, the time has come, folks. The amount of money we spend we're kind of right there at that $15,000 limit, but you know, there's lots of stuff we don't put into or take into account when we fully use staff and everyone else to do a lot of this. I don't think Lisa ever gets all the hours that she spends with us doing vetting and stuff for the NNE committee. And we really don't have an accurate accounting of how much money we spend, but it's not like it's something I absolutely can't afford to do.
Can I chime in, Linda?
Sure.
I think this is an excellent idea for the simple fact that it takes all the onus off of you and staff and volunteers. I think it is the way to go. With what I've seen here since I've been here for 15 months, I would have been looking to do this a long time ago.
Lisa and I've been looking for a long time.
Yeah, you know what? It just for the simple fact of problems or what, and the hours that you guys put in, it should have been looked at a long time ago and been in place.
Well, part of it was changing the bylaws that we needed to do, but we started looking at people, wow, 2 years back, Lisa? I can't hear.
Can't hear you, Lisa.
You are on
Sorry,
mute.
I was muted. Sorry. I think it was 3 years ago at CAI, where I first started talking to online vendors. But the problem since then, it's been universally agreed upon that this is the best idea. But we've had 2 elections a year every year since then, and that takes all the focus for NNE. There just isn't enough bandwidth. Chase, I mean, the NNE committee is solely committed right now to researching and vetting and interviewing for companies. That you couldn't do that if we were still getting ballots twice a week for 4 hours. Now, I'm not trying to present an excuse, but that is a good reason why this hasn't been done yet.
It's just, it takes a lot of time. You know, I've had calls back from at least 2 of the different companies asking questions, and that's where I just made up a packet to say, here's my NNE manual, here are my bylaws, try and outline for them what's in my bylaws that I have to do. Some state laws and stuff that are different in different states, but most of these people are extremely knowledgeable about different laws in different states. And so far, they've been able to fall in place under the broad guidelines if we start asking individual questions. And that's why the committee currently has all 4 vendors, and hopefully we're going to start talking about it at our next meeting on Monday.
Mr. President, this is Mike, Sergeant of Arms. We should get back to the agenda.
Oh, we're going. I'm done. If nobody's got any other questions.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you to you and your team for all your work on gathering those. Okay, so we'll move into the continuing business. Go ahead, Leslie.
Yes, I did send out all of this information to the board on Tuesday morning. The first cover letter stating that I listed 7 auditors that we did contact and ask them for quotes. The original cutoff date was March the 30th. At that time, no bids had been received from any of these companies. We reached out to them again after the cutoff date. With the above result, 2 of them still did not respond. 3 of them declined, and 2 of them said that they would send a quote. Of those 2 who said they would, only 1 of them actually did. The quote that we attached to the last Finance Committee packet from Larson Gross was considered unresponsive because it was only a continuation of their previous quotes and not a new quote that conforms to the RFQ. Based on this, the Finance Committee did have a discussion of the 2 quotes. I did send those to you in a separate email. One from CLA, which is Clifton Larson Allen, and the other one from Larson Gross. Both of them seem to be very competent, very thorough, and there are no red flags with either one of them. The CLA one was a higher quote, and Larson Gross, although it was lower, we did look at the higher one. And one of our concerns for CLA was the fact that they are not local. And with this coronavirus issue, we don't know if they would be able to travel here or if they would want to do this online, which for a first-time audit, the Finance Committee found troubling. And therefore, they recommended Larson Gross. And let me make a motion on this, and then we can discuss it. Based on the motion from the Finance Committee, I move to select Larson Gross's 3-year bid for the 2019 through 21 audit.
Second.
Further discussion? No further discussion?
Well, actually, I have a question. What was it exactly that the Finance Committee found troubling about doing a remote audit? Just for clarification.
So part of it is since they're not here, they're not familiar with our business. They haven't audited us before. They're not familiar with our business. Typically, an audit company would come and do some field work and, you know, be on site. It's just a little bit easier to understand processes and all of that in person. And so I think that was something that we wanted for definitely a first time audit. So it was a combination of the higher cost, them not being local, and, you know, possibly not being able to do an on-site audit. Now, Larson, I will say Larson Gross, any audit company will do a substantial portion in their office, but typically they do come and have an actual office visit.
Quick question, how long, what, every 3 years they, on their initial visit, they generally come? And then what, every 3 years they do it on site, is that correct?
No, they do it on site every year. I mean, Larson Gross has been coming out every year.
Okay. How long do they generally spend, especially on that first visit? Is it?
Aaron?
It really, I don't have a good answer for that. I haven't really been through a Sudden Valley audit before, so I don't know how long they would typically stay, but I seem to recall Newman was out last year for about a week. Is that?
Larson Gross spends 3 days here, or 3 to 5 days here every year. I just know because I booked the conference room for them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Paula, I think you're thinking about the reserve study, which is done every 3 years. Yeah.
I
Okay.
realized that, yeah, I was like, nope, wrong study.
Yes.
So just to be clear, we're recommending Larson and Gross because they've been here before and they know the processes in case they have to do it internet based.
Also because they did have a less expensive bid.
Okay.
And also because they're familiar with our business and we're familiar with them, and we just went through a process that was quite painful with the previous auditor that we didn't really want to have to repeat again. So it was all three of those combined together.
But you just said that you haven't been through a Sudden Valley audit.
I have not been through a Sudden Valley audit, no, but I have been through audits and I do expect them to return accurate work product, which is not what we got at from the last auditor.
Right, I was there for that meeting. Thank you.
Why did we, because we used Larson Gross before in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why did we switch to Newman? And forgive my, unsureness about that process, but
Can I answer that question?
yeah.
Okay. I was there for that. Jennifer, as a former auditor herself, felt that because Larson and Gross had been our auditor exclusively for 3 years, that it would be a good idea optically to get a new set of eyes on us.
Actually, Larson Gross had been for about 10 years. And it really was just time to have a different auditing firm look at the books and make sure that nothing was being missed, and just get a different point of view. It's just a financial decision that you make.
Is that pretty standard? I mean, yeah, I'm just curious. Like, did something happen where Jennifer thought like, hey, maybe it's time we do this, or was it?
No, nothing happened. It's just a good financial practice to not have the same people all the time.
Okay.
Wouldn't a better financial practice be to just have a second set of eyes, have the original person audit it and have a second set of eyes do that? I mean,
that would be pretty expensive. Rather than having just one auditor, pay one auditor, you'd be paying 2 auditors. I'm not aware of a second opinion audit. I don't think that happens. It is a pretty typical practice. I will also say, since we have gotten a new GM and a new accounting manager and a new auditor all within the last year, we have definitely had those new eyes looking at things. And so I don't think we have any issues with going back to our previous auditor in that regard.
Well, it seems like last year was kind of expensive to us then if we didn't get what we wanted. And I mean, I guess I'm just kind of questioning. It just seems odd to go for 1 year. Oh, 1 year, we're going to try this. So I'm just looking for clarification.
So we had signed a contract with Newman to be for 3 years. That was the goal, is to have a new auditor for 3 years. But since it didn't live up to our expectations of what an auditor should provide, we ended that contract. So typically we would have gone through for 3 years, and that's why we're also requesting a 3-year contract this time. It wouldn't be in our best interest to plan to switch every year. That's not a good practice, but we can
No,
plan.
but what it sounds like is that you're saying that it's an okay practice to switch for 1 year when actually that's what I'm just trying to clarify, because that's what it's sounding like right now, is that it's a sound financial decision. Oh, just to go try somebody for another year. That literally is how that was presented. So I'm just
No.
looking for clarification. Okay, I think the entire community needs to know that that's not what we're doing, because that sounded really reckless.
No, the plan was we had a 3-year contract with Newman. That's why we had to end the contract. So we had planned to switch auditors for 3 years to a new auditor. We hired Newman. It didn't live up to our expectations. We've been through all of that. And so we had to end that contract. And so now we're going to we're recommending Larson Gross, but for another 3 years. We're not recommending another 1 year audit. We're recommending 3.
The motion is for 3 years.
Leslie, I think I have just a couple of things. We were talking about Newman, and I know that's not this audit. Did we ever have the attorney send them a letter? We said we were going to do that, and
Yes, the letter did go to them. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to point out about Larson and Gross is I was looking at their 2018 bid, and one of the things.
Stay on topic. We have a motion on the floor.
I'm going to talk about money. Thank you, Mike. One of the things in their older bid was they used to do golf for us. And that was what kicked up the bid, because they did that extra work in taking a look at golf's finances. And we're still paying as much. It's just strange that we're paying as much now when it was less back then, but that also included taking a look at golf's finances. That's all.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to, I guess, for me, it was, hearing the discussion, Jennifer recommended last year that, good practice to try a different firm, get different eyes on this or whatever. We've talked about that there's some new people in and there's different eyes, but I'd still contend that maybe, the bids seem pretty close, and that maybe some of the recommendations that were given by the previous auditor, although we didn't, as a board, collectively love the results there, they did mention things about complex books and things like that. And I'm wondering if maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to have that actual second set of eyes, and maybe this other company would provide that to us. And so I guess for me, I'd probably be in favor of going with the other company to, if we felt unsatisfied with the second set of eyes that we got this last year, then it seems like we still haven't satisfied that feeling that Jennifer had, that we should get a second set of eyes on this as well. That's my thoughts.
Any further discussion? Thanks, AJ.
Well, just real quick, the other auditor is up to $4,000 a year more with their travel costs. Larson & Gross doesn't have travel costs. CLA has up to $2,000 travel costs. So their audit is more plus travel costs. So that recommendation would be $4,000 more in a year when we are in a uncertain financial situation. I just want to make sure that's clear before we vote.
Well, we could also count on that then later, I'm sure, when we're voting on other things because of this uncertain financial situation. I think that AJ has a great point, and it is our finances and auditing. If you're not going to spend money there, where are you going to spend money? But yeah, I don't feel like my explanation was really met. I feel like we were told we should look over here. Oh, nope, don't like that. We're going to go back to here. And it's just like, maybe we should continue with the recommendation. I really agree with AJ.
I'd also contend that we're like, do they actually have to come here? I mean, we're all sitting here meeting as a collective with people attending as like an audience who are being able to like jump in, like the technology is there for the information to be had without like being in person necessarily. We got printers, we got scanners, we got PDFs, we got Zoom.
Which is true.
I guess I don't see those travel costs being absolutely necessary. And if we took the measures to say like, this is our contract to dictate, not theirs, so we can make those determinations ourselves. It's our contract to negotiate. We're asking them for services. We want what we want. We can say, we don't need you. You can have a $2,000 buffer there for travel if it's maybe absolutely necessary, but it's at the Sudden Valley's discretion to use such, and there seems to be methods to be able to circumvent the need for most of that money.
I will just say Joel could probably comment more if he's still around. I think that an in-person, in order to assess some of the internal controls and the processes, I do think that an in-person meeting would be beneficial to be able to properly assess that. Another thing we talked about, I know
that an in-person meeting may not even be actually possible in the time frame where they need to start doing this, so it may not even be an issue if bringing people to your site to meet on point or meet during all of this.
Right.
Which was why this was another reason why we recommended Larson Gross, because they had already been here on site to see some of those processes and stuff. So that was another point, that having a brand new company come in that's not familiar with how we do business is different than having one that had done it before, and they're able to assess differently than a brand new company coming on. So that was some of the stuff that was talked about in the finance committee meeting.
That's odd though, because it negates the whole idea of having a second set of eyes. And I mean, I just feel like if my 78-year-old CPA grandmother could figure out how to do it remotely, she lived in a very rural community and did all of that remotely. So I'm sure we can all figure it out.
I was going to say, Karen, you were saying that the $2,000 is additional. I'm not certain that's the case. Because it says complimentary services, in-person meeting with the finance committee to review audit plan, and post-audit meeting to review the final audit results. Some firms charge separately for this service. Our not to exceed price is inclusive of all these meetings, and they have their total at the $30,975. And I think they're saying if they go over that $2,000 limit that they have built into that, then they will start billing us for time. That's what I think that means.
Question for Joel to answer. That's not, I didn't read it that way. But could be still more
I have a
expensive.
question. If everyone can see that blue hand that I've put up in my picture here. Was there anything that you guys liked about the other auditor, not Larson Gross, the other one that we're talking about here, better than what Larson Gross offers? Was there anything that was there that you saw?
The Clifton Larson Allen one? the
Oh,
second,
yeah, the other bid.
other bid, okay.
Sorry, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. They both were well qualified and included everything that we had requested. So from a competency point of view, I think that either one of them is qualified. It comes down to the cost and the ability to be on site. And I mean, this is something that has to do with the coronavirus and whether or not they will be able to come in and sit down and do business, or we don't know that.
I don't think we know that from anyone.
So Leslie, was the vote at Finance Committee unanimous in support of Larson Gross, or was there any dissenting conversation in that vote?
No, it was unanimous.
I'd like to call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Leslie?
Okay, let me write it down here.
Thanks, AJ.
I move to select Larson Gross's 3-year bid for the 2019 through 21 audits.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me. I'd like to go with something new, not the same old thing.
Looks like the motion carries for,
I have three. I have three opposing. I cannot see Mike.
Mike voted for, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you, everyone, and good discussion. Okay, new business and voting as necessary. Teleconferencing. So at a previous meeting, we had said we were going to continue teleconferencing through April 30th, but I think we'd like to just carry that out as long as the governor's order is in place. Those are my thoughts. I don't think we need to make a motion because I think the governor has actually issued a proclamation, a notice for teleconferencing anyway, but might be a good idea for us to just vote on something like that. So I guess what I'm asking is if we want to continue teleconferencing as long as there's a governor ordinance in place.
Right now, it's May 4th.
I think Andrew has a good idea of simply wording it that we continue doing this until such time the governor allows for meetings of 10 or more people.
Yeah,
I agree.
And set a date.
Yeah, I apologize for breaking in here. Jamie actually is in the audience and she's apparently got some information about this. So I'm just going to bring her in briefly here. Go ahead, Jamie.
he needs to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Last time you guys designated a date, like some kind of a date in your last motion.
We did. I believe it was to teleconference for us and all the committees through April 30th.
Correct. Maybe it might be better to keep it consistent. I mean, you can always push out the date longer if need be.
I thought legally, if we were making a motion, we had to have an end date.
Yes, correct.
Well, then we could easily have a problem because the governor, in theory, the current stay at home is over on the 4th. Our next board meeting is when in May?
14th.
Why don't we just vote? Why don't we just make the motion for all of May and then revisit as needed? like May
That's what I would
31st.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
agree
go,
with that.
you know, I've heard that it may be extended by about 3 weeks based on some reports that have come through. So if we went through end of May, then at maybe end of May, unless allowed sooner, like that.
I honestly don't see board meetings with a full house being allowed, so I think we're safe.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I like y'all, but I don't think I'm sitting in a room with y'all for a while.
Right, I believe the way the last motion was stated was you gave a date unless otherwise directed or something like that. There was like a caveat at the end. So I think, you know, if you just keep it aligned, you know, in that same language, you're fine, just to keep it consistent.
Thanks,
I
Jamie.
would vote we
Appreciate that.
just,
Make it
I
May
would vote,
31st.
Oh,
I would vote we just continue to do what we're doing for another month and readdress at the end of next month. You know, see where the governor's at, and you know, even if the governor says it's okay to have it, we may still feel it's prudent or best practice just to continue this for another extra month or whatever. You know, there's
Right,
no reason to really risk it or chance anything.
And this would be
It's
across
working
all
pretty
SBCA
good as it
committees,
is.
Agreed.
It would be across.
not just the board.
It would be across all committees.
Okay.
And I would verbiage it until May 31st, to be revisited on the board meeting of the 28th.
I would think that would be good. Just do it through the end of next month. One more month of doing it this way, and then we'll reevaluate. That'd be my thoughts.
okay, so we're all comfortable with the May 31st date, and we'll revisit it at the May 28th board meeting. Can we just agree by acclamation? Okay. I think we're getting tired.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Jamie.
you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next and last item of business is our member business proposal. So similar to Michael, who we heard from earlier, I think we want to make it as easy, as I mentioned before, we want to make it as easy as possible for our members to you know, be active during this time of crisis. So I think and I'd like to hear from you guys, it might be an easier path to let Joe continue seeking out other businesses who may want to operate. So we can put it in his hands to kind of go do that, or how would you like to do that?
I think that you need to get as far away from selective enforcement as you can. And that it's very interesting to me that you're actually bringing this up, because the emails that went between all of us were very rude and accusatory, pointing fingers towards me for
Steffi,
giving
excuse me, I
someone
have to interrupt
follow.
right now, but this is bringing us backwards, and I'm interested in having a conversation that moves us forward. And this is about our community. And
Yes, it is
I
about
don't
our
think,
community. The emails that we exchanged were about our community as well.
so we'll
where
go
I
ahead
was
and
trying
table
to
this
help.
then, conversation, Steffi. Sorry, we don't have a place for that right now.
Oh, we don't? We haven't had a place for it for the last 2 weeks then. It just got swept under the rug. I'm disappointed. Thank you.
I'm actually very supportive of Michael's operation, and all I'm saying is I think we want to make it available, or that opportunity available to other community members who may have similar operations. That's the goal here. But if we can't have a professional conversation about that right now, I think we'll just adjourn the meeting.
I think that it's professional to acknowledge the tone of the emails that were sent out to me as a board member. I think it's professional to take care of that. That's what I think. Thank you.
Maybe we should, I don't know, having read all of the emails, maybe we should read the emails and or release those. I don't know that actually it's probably a waste of time, but somewhat maybe this isn't the place for it, but I think there's a discrepancy between what I read and what I've heard, and I think the tone of the emails I don't know. Maybe we need to look at the emails in a public forum.
Absolutely.
I'd like-
Go ahead.
Well, sorry, I was just kind of move past the emails. I'm curious as to, there's this underlying notion that is like no businesses allowed in Sun Valley, and I'm wondering where that rule comes from and how we've determined that that's the case. You know, I've looked through our governing documents. The only thing that I've seen is in the CCNRs. It discusses the fact that all lots shall be used for residential purposes. No lot shall be used except for residential purposes. Now, my question is there another place where we actually discuss that there's no businesses allowed, or is that the basis of like the whole idea that businesses aren't allowed in Sun Valley?
As far as I know, that's the only place that it's discussed. I think initially, you have, for instance, there's the whole little mini mart thing over there. That's not part of Sun Valley. A lot of people think it is, but it isn't. AJ, you brought up there's a code that's county code that all of our homes are done as, and they're residential, but it gives you lots of things to do. We have lots of businesses here in the valley that many of them provide services such as window cleaning, painting, handyman services, and they're run out of our homes. But I think there's some things, and it's, Joe, I don't know if you've had to do this, but there's things like we don't have auto body shops here in Sun Valley. They may want to put one over on the corner there where that's going to be developed by somebody, but we have some things that aren't necessarily allowed within our boundaries. But there's a code where the county says, here's how all of this is your residence, and here's what you can do with it. And I think maybe we should all take a look at that, which is a county code that kind of explains what you can do if you have a home in here as a residence.
Yeah, I'd like to
think
just
that's a
follow up.
point.
Sorry, Linda, if you
No,
got more, go ahead.
go AJ, go.
Well, I'd just like to follow up on that. Like, if that one sentence is the basis for years of Sun Valley not allowing anyone to have this home-based business, which how exactly is that defined? How is the word residential defined in that statement? Well, it's not defined in the CCNR. So my logical deduction is the CCNRs are a document required by Whatcom County when the properties are developed, and it is something that gets recorded against all of the properties as rules that you have to follow as a part of owning said property. And so the only place that the word residential is actually defined is in the Whatcom County Code in Title 20 of the zoning code. And there are a slew of uses that you can do without permission, with permission, with exceptions and special permission that they outline in there that you can use for residential things, one of which is cottage industry businesses. And so I'm just kind of curious as to how we got to the notion where it's not allowed and how we're somehow even capable of enforcing something like that. I don't know if anyone here has any sort of insight into that, but I contend we're not helping our community thrive by having such a rule. In-home daycare should not be banned. There's a serious need for that in our community.
Amen.
And it would provide a service to people who have children at home that can't afford to put them all in daycare to go to work because they can't make more than they can make. There's where do you draw the line too with in-home businesses? Like, You know, if someone works from a computer but works for someone else's business but works at home, is that okay? But if someone works from a computer and owns their own business and that address is their business address, is that not okay? It very much seems very arbitrary on where you could draw the line, how you could enforce this, and how it was even determined as a, you know, something that we're able to even regulate. Obviously, as Linda brought up, like with the auto shop example, the Whatcom County Code would not let someone come in and demolish a house and build an auto mechanic shop. That would be a commercial property, you know, but that doesn't stop someone necessarily from being able to do auto mechanic work out of their own garage attached to the house that they live in to make some additional money, to pay our dues, to get ahead, to do more maintenance to their home, to feed their family, whatever the money is needed for.
So I would suggest that we aren't going to solve this right here, right? The whole issue, because AJ, I think you're right. I think it's in other HOAs I've lived in, there are home business parameters that are put in, and that's what I think we're lacking. The sense that I got from again, going back to emails was that, yeah, I think most people on the board, if not everybody, supports the idea of looking at it, and nobody disagrees that we want people to be able to make a living and to do that. I would say, why don't we take a look at that as a whole and put some parameters around it, though, because we don't want somebody fixing cars in the middle of the street, or maybe we do, I don't know, but I think there has to be a larger discussion around that. It probably doesn't need to be none, because realistically there are some home businesses in the valley, and we all know that. And then I don't know that we want to go wholesale, you know, the other way without having some definition and some parameters around it. So I would suggest that we look closely at that coming up and see what the community wants and what we can support and put rules around and ideas around as a board.
I'm going to interject. I think it's going to be more of a legal opinion than anything else. The last thing you want to do is make something that's going to put you in a potential lawsuit. So before we go anywhere, we got to have a legal opinion to make sure that there's no other pending or another case law that would define residential for homeowners associations. So that's the first step, is finding out if there's any other legal action or a case that has been decided on before we go anywhere.
Back a few years ago, there was a couple that bought a house up here on the way to my house on Louisview, and basically fixed it up as a B&B. They didn't live in it, but it was a B&B. B&Bs are called, it's different than if you have a long-term lease with people. You know, one of our requirements is that if you lease or rent your home to someone, you have to put their information, who they are, and on file with Sudden Valley. If you have something that's considered transient housing, like hotels are, people don't do that. There are Airbnbs all over this valley. You know, go log on and look sometimes. There's at least a dozen of them the last time I looked. But they're businesses. You know, what happens if something happens while someone's in there and they haven't notified us that, oh, hey, Joe and Brenda Smith are going to be in there for a week. And let's say the house burns. Who burned up in the house? You know, there's reasons why I think there's good things, but I think we need to look at this at the county code and maybe relook at things. I'd love to have chickens in my backyard, but I can't. But I think that as far as businesses go, I think that it would be good to look at that and find out that if the use of a residence here meets county code, and someone's just having a window washing company that comes out as a service to people, or daycare or whatever, is that allowable? Because if they're a daycare, they probably have to be licensed, which means they've had their home looked at by authorities. Karen, tell me I'm wrong about this. Usually if you have a daycare or something.
I would contend, Linda, I would contend that to do that, you're.
President.
Hey, guys.
Mr. President,
Mike, go ahead.
Andrew, Josh has had his hand up for a long while, but he has not been asked to speak. And number two, I'm not quite sure that under your member business proposals, that the conversation that we're having here as a committee is exactly what's on the agenda. And if it is, then I apologize. But right now, I think we should listen to Josh.
Thanks, Mike. I don't think these guys can see the color blue very well, so that's okay. My concern here is that, you know, we're in a pretty desperate time for people. So what can we do now? Obviously, Joe, Andrew, you need to speak to the lawyer. Is there anything that we can do temporarily for all businesses that, you know, that do not need social gatherings, and that they can work within the confines of what we have to work within, at least so people can make some cash if they have the ability to with their businesses that they run out of home here. Obviously, you know, we don't want to see bounce houses popping up all over the neighborhood, but you know, that goes with the social distancing and stuff. And I wouldn't want people advertising out in the city to bring people over here either. That's just my opinion. But what can we do now? Because we're talking about some really big logistical things that, you know, I'm not sure how we get to wrapping that up in a timely manner while we're going through all of this chaos in this country right now.
Again, Josh, I think the first thing is to see if there has been any case law prior that would make it a lot easier to make decisions.
Okay.
I'd just like to get,
ultimately that's
That
where
sounds ridiculous.
that's going to go.
I'd just like to contend that, like, I'm kind of the one who brought all of this up, and you know, pointing out what is the actual definition of residential. I'd like to contend that my position is you know, Paula was saying she doesn't think we should go full the opposite way. I think we should do exactly that. Like, why do we need redundant steps in our association that cost us staff time, money, resources, our time, that's redundant on what Whatcom County already provides us through their code and their permitting process? They already have rules in place for businesses in residential or anything really that you want to do with your residential property. You know, so I contend that, you know, can we go just full sale? Like, do we need all of these redundant things? Like, so much stuff with the ACC too is also redundant to stuff that Whatcom County Code already has to deal with. And we just create this scenario where we have to do more because we're choosing to insert ourselves into our private properties, you know, and I have like some troubles with the fact that, like, you know, like, where is it that it even says anywhere, regardless of if residential, what the definition of residential, that someone actually needs to go to Sudden Valley to ask permission to do a home-based business? And then how do you even enforce such a thing between the various types of businesses that you could have in home that could both be not drawing traffic out here, drawing additional traffic out here? It just seems like this really arbitrary gray area where you're just making random decisions that, you know, like the color of houses. The approved color list, as I understand, can just be changed by the board. So it's really just an arbitrary rule to control what people are trying to do on their own private property. If someone wants to paint their house pink, let them paint their house pink. They think it looks good. Why is it your decision to say otherwise, that it shouldn't be allowed because of some property value, discussion that maybe has validity, maybe doesn't?
Can I just say, I like some of the comments that Joshua said, I think back in the email, and I think you reiterated some again, that I think there are some considerations that we would want to think of, which is, traffic, bringing in traffic from outside of Sudden Valley. I don't necessarily mean traffic just around Sudden Valley, that's already incorporated, but that does have an impact on our roads. There are a few other things. So
Whatcom County's already looking at that stuff. Like if you're bringing traffic to your site with a business, they're going to look to make sure you have adequate parking to support what is going to be there, that you have the facilities in place if like an employee is coming on site.
Can I finish my comment though? What I'm saying is that we're all paying for the roads, and whether Whatcom County agrees with it or not, I want to think about whether we're bringing additional traffic in on our roads that we are going to have to pay for wear and tear. It's just something that I want to consider. I don't have all of the answers right now, but I think what we've kind of discussed right now is that I think we're all kind of in agreement that we think Joe can kind of handle whether or not there are businesses that come up that we should be allowed based on what our guidelines say. So I don't know that we're really enforcing anything at this point as far as shutting things down. I've not heard of anybody's business out of their home being shut down. So, but I do think that we probably want that the membership has been asking for some clarification on this for a while. And I think that we should provide them with that, but that's not something that's going to happen tonight. And that includes really understanding, all of us, what is written in our books, what previous case law is, and what any parameters are around that we want to consider as far as what might be allowable and whatnot. Linda brought up a few. There are a few things to consider, and I would suspect that maybe Rich on ACC might have some things to say too about that.
So we absolutely have no right to be dictating to people. We have absolutely no right to say, do not drive out to Sudden Valley. However, the general consensus in town is that people do not want to drive out here. They feel like it's a distance for them for whatever reason. I do not feel that. I completely support AJ's statement, especially in these times. As Josh said, we need to be helping our neighbors. I'm going to get one more dig in that, this should have been the focus from the beginning. So I just think that dragging it on isn't helpful. We should let people do the things that they do and provide our community. It's a service to our community. Daycares are most definitely needed. As well as preschools. And also, we have our own board members like going to go pick up products from other people's porches. It's out on Facebook. It's like, how do you police that? Then how do you turn that over to a general manager and actually give him the tools to be successful and say, here, go make biased decisions. Everyone thinks that we're biased. Please continue. I think you need to get as far away from selective enforcement as possible. Thank you.
If I could answer that for just a minute. I did purchase something from somebody. She did not have a booth in her driveway.
Leslie, no one cares. It's not a crime. It's okay.
Anybody who has a home business which is contained within their home, there's been no problem with it. And I think that the only concerns that our neighbors have had is when a business brings traffic into the street and disrupts the rest of what's going on. And so I think that's where we have to address the problem. Is there a way to allow people to do their businesses so that it doesn't impact their neighbors? Anything that happens within your home has never been a problem.
Okay,
Thank you,
so
Leslie. That's
may I
awesome
chime
to
in here?
say. Thank you. I also want to point out that, yeah, it's not even just home-based businesses. The end of my road, I've been blocked off. Oh, I don't know, probably 6 times. I've had other people complain so that it's not me complaining. And, you know, so those are also, you know, builders cause those problems too, not just home-based businesses, but that is a huge point of contention for my road. So thank you for bringing that up.
Can I just say that this whole conversation started because we wanted to make sure that we were allowing all of our residents the same opportunities. That was the basis of this whole conversation to start. It wasn't selective
Actually, that's
enforcement
false.
or anything.
No, the
It was
basis of the
to make
conversation. No, the basis of the
Excuse me,
conversation
Karen
was to find
Seppi,
out
I'm
which
sorry, but
board.
Karen was in the middle of speaking,
But
and
that's
I think maybe
incorrect.
at this point, we should just call this discussion
You're certainly
ending.
interested in shutting down the conversation, Andrew.
Okay, so I think we've had enough discussion on this agenda item. I think the next step for me is to get some legal counsel advice on what Joe mentioned we ought to do. So I'll go ahead and do that and work with Joe on getting something from Richard to send out to all of you, and we'll have this discussion at another meeting. Thank you everyone for your input. Anything else for the good of the order?
Move to adjourn.
What about,
Are we
property
voting
comment?
on this?
Oh,
Is that a
I
motion to table
apologize.
that we're voting on, or what is exactly
Did not
happening?
have, there was no motion on the floor.
Yeah, but the
We go to
discussions
property
just seem to be
comment.
tabled, and that requires
Go
a.
to property comments.
No, it wasn't. It was discussion and voting as necessary. Are we tabling the conversation?
There was no motion on the floor.
Yeah, it was a discussion. So are we tabling the discussion?
I have written down that we're going to get further clarification, that Andrew and Joe are going to work together to get further clarification.
Perfect, thank you. Let's open it up to property owner comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any property owners would like to speak? Just use the raise my hand feature here in Zoom. Actually, Jamie wants to chime in. We'll go ahead and bring her back in here.
Did you want to table that discussion to a specific future board meeting, or the executive committee will let me know at a future time?
So we're going to try to get in as timely fashion as possible something from Richard. So I imagine this will be a discussion item at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Anybody else? That appears to be everybody. Yeah, not seeing any hands.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
By acclamation. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks.